Hey, my name is Marcus Hale. I'm 30 years old and I repair motorcycles in a tight little shop on the far east side of the city. Most days I'm surrounded by the smell of engine oil, burnt rubber, and hot steel. The constant clank of tools hitting concrete and the low, restless rumble of engines that refuse to die. I'm better at fixing machines than I am at fixing anything in myself. People around the neighborhood know me as the quiet guy who keeps to himself. They also know that every Friday night I walk into Betty's diner, slide into the same corner booth, and order 2 plates of grilled steak with mashed potatoes. The second plate has always been for Anna. Anna died 3 years ago when a pickup ran a red light and slammed into her car while she was heading home after her shift at the hospital. We used to come to Betty's every Friday. She always asked for extra gravy, laughed at how fast I ate, and stole bites off my plate even though she had her own. After she was gone, I kept coming anyway. I kept ordering 2 meals. I kept sitting across from an empty chair that never filled itself again. People told me I was stuck in it, that I needed to move on, that the dead don't eat food left sitting in front of them. They didn't understand. That 1 hour every Friday was the only time I still felt like she was near me. That night, the diner was nearly empty. Betty, the older waitress who had known me for years, placed both plates down without a word. At first she used to ask, "Marcus, 2 again tonight?" After a while, she stopped asking altogether. She just set Anna's plate in its usual spot, placed the water glass where it always went, and walked away. I stared at the second plate. Steam still rose from the steak. The mashed potatoes sat heavy under the gravy, slowly settling at the edges. Outside, rain tapped softly against the diner window. Like always, I told myself I'd ask Betty to box it up in 10 minutes. Take it home. Put it in the fridge. Throw it away at midnight. A pointless habit, but one I couldn't break. Then the door opened. A woman stepped inside. Thin frame, pale face, wearing a coat that looked like it didn't belong to her. Behind her stood a little boy, maybe 6 years old, pressed tightly against her leg, both arms wrapped around his stomach. His clothes were worn, his hair messy, and his eyes carried something no child should ever have to learn, that quiet mix of fear and hunger. The woman stopped near the entrance like she was ready to turn around the second someone looked at her too long. Betty walked over. "What can I get you, hon?" The woman kept her head down. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Can we just sit for a minute? Just a minute." Betty looked at the boy, then back at her. "This is a restaurant, sweetheart. You sit, you order. That's how it works." "I know," she said quickly, her voice breaking. "I don't have money, but my son, he's really hungry. We just need somewhere warm for a little while." The boy looked up at her. I saw it instantly, that quiet shame children carry when life gets too heavy too early. It didn't hit like a punch. It settled in my chest instead and stayed there. My eyes drifted to the second plate in front of me. The one Anna would never touch. The one I had kept ordering for 3 years like it meant something wouldn't end if I didn't let it. I stood up before I could rethink it. "They're with me," I said. Betty turned, surprised. The woman looked at me like she hadn't heard correctly. I pointed at the empty chair across from me. "Come sit." She shook her head immediately. "No, we don't want to bother you." "You're not bothering me." My gaze moved to the boy. "He can have that plate." The woman hesitated. Her eyes flicked between me and the food like she was afraid it would disappear if she believed it too quickly. Then her eyes went glassy. She guided the boy forward. He climbed into the chair slowly, carefully, like even hope might break if he moved wrong. I slid the plate toward him. "Eat." He looked at his mother. She nodded. And then he started eating. Fast, quiet, like he was afraid someone would take it away before he finished. I had to look away for a second. For 3 years I had believed my grief filled every empty space in me. But watching that child eat the meal I had been ordering for someone who was never coming back made me realize something else existed in this world. Pain that was still happening, right now, in front of me. The woman sat down across from me, hands tightly folded in her lap. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll pay you back. I swear. I don't know how, But I will. No need. I'm Claire Patterson. This is my son, Daniel. Marcus. She tried to smile, but it didn't hold. We're not usually like this. I don't ask strangers for help. It's just been hard lately. I didn't ask what hard meant right away. People like that don't need questions at first. They need space. So I asked something simpler. Where are you staying? She went quiet. I already knew the answer before she spoke. Nowhere, I said softly. Daniel had almost finished eating. His head leaned against his mother's arm, eyes slipping shut from exhaustion. I looked at him, then at her. In my mind, I saw the small storage room behind my shop. A cot, a heater, old blankets, a locked door. I've got a room behind my shop, I said. It's nothing special, but it's warm, dry. You can stay there tonight. Claire's eyes widened. No, we can't accept that. Just tonight, I said. It's freezing out there. The kid needs sleep. She looked down at Daniel. He was already drifting off, fork still in his hand. Something in her gave way. Just tonight, she whispered. I paid for the meal. When we stepped outside, Daniel was already asleep on his feet. I picked him up without thinking. He was lighter than he should have been. Claire watched me carefully as I carried him, like she didn't fully trust kindness yet. I understood that. Some people learn early that kindness doesn't always stay kind. The shop was only 10 minutes away. I brought them into the back room, laid out an extra blanket on the cot, and turned on the heater. Claire stood in the doorway, taking in the small space like she couldn't believe something like this was real. Why are you helping us? She asked quietly. I looked at Daniel sleeping. Then I thought about the empty chair at Betty's. About Anna. About 3 years of waiting for something that wasn't coming back. Because someone should. I said. That night I went upstairs to my apartment above the shop. And for the first time in 3 years, I didn't lie awake staring at the ceiling thinking about the second plate going cold. I thought about the fact that maybe it hadn't gone to waste after all. If you want, send the next part and I'll continue with the same consistency. We drove to the hospital in silence. Claire sat in the stiff plastic chairs in the waiting area, holding Daniel's hand so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. Her lips moved constantly, like she was whispering prayers she didn't fully believe in. I stood a few steps away, watching the fluorescent lights buzz overhead. The smell of antiseptic, bleach, and sickness hit me in waves, sharp enough to make my stomach tighten. The last time I had been in a hospital was the night Anna died. I could still see it too clearly. The way the doctors walked out without meeting my eyes. The way silence said more than their words ever could. We did everything we could. That sentence had followed me for 3 years like a shadow I couldn't outrun. I hadn't stepped inside a hospital since. The doctor told us Daniel had a serious infection, but we had caught it in time. Antibiotics would fix it. Nothing permanent. Nothing irreversible. The bill came out to nearly $500. I paid without thinking. My hand just moved before my mind caught up. On the drive back, Daniel slept in the back seat, curled into himself like exhaustion had finally won. Claire sat beside me in the front, staring out the window, crying silently. No sound. Just tears sliding down her face like she had run out of energy to hold them back. I can't keep doing this to you, she said finally. You're not doing anything to me, I replied. Yes, I am, she whispered. You gave us a place to stay. You got me a job. You paid for my son's hospital bill. I have nothing to give back. I don't want to owe another man. The last part made me glance at her. What does that mean? I asked quietly. Claire didn't answer right away. The silence stretched long enough that I almost thought she wouldn't. Then she spoke, voice low but steady. I had a daughter before Daniel. My grip tightened slightly on the steering wheel without me realizing it. She was born too early. She only lived 3 days. Her name was Emma. I didn't look away from the road, but I felt every word land heavier than the last. My husband at the time said it was my fault, she continued. That I was too weak, too emotional, that I didn't know how to carry a baby properly. Her breath shook. After that, he started drinking more. Then it turned into anger. Then it turned into hitting me. The car felt too small suddenly. I stayed because I didn't know where else to go. But one night, he hit Daniel too. Her voice broke slightly, but she kept going. That was the night I knew if I didn't leave, my son wasn't going to survive long enough to grow up. I pulled the truck over to the side of the road. Not because I couldn't hear it anymore. Because I needed to look at her when she said the rest. Claire turned toward me, eyes full of tears. I'm not telling you this so you feel sorry for me, she said quickly. I'm telling you because I need to know what this is. I stayed quiet. Are you helping us because Daniel reminds you of your wife? She asked. Because the shop feels less empty when we're around? If that's what this is, you need to say it. I can't let my son get attached to someone and then watch him lose another person. Her words didn't miss. They hit exactly where I had been avoiding looking. Outside the windshield, rain started falling softly, turning the road into blurred reflections. Anna came back into my mind. The empty chair at the diner. 3 years of sitting across from nothing. Claire wasn't wrong. Not completely. I had let Daniel reach into a part of me that still belonged to someone else. I had let their presence make the silence in my life feel less unbearable. I finally spoke. I lost my wife 3 years ago, I said. Anna wasn't just someone I loved. She was my life. My home. When she died, I didn't know what I was supposed to be anymore. I just kept working. Kept going to that diner. Kept sitting across from an empty chair like it meant something. I swallowed. When Daniel walked in, when you said he was hungry, I saw something I could do that actually mattered. Maybe I was saving myself a little too. I glanced at her. But I don't see Daniel as a replacement. And I don't see you as a way to forget anything. Claire studied me for a long moment. Then what do you see when you look at me? She asked softly. I hesitated. Because the honest answer felt too sharp. I see someone trying to survive, I said finally. And I respect that. She closed her eyes, letting out a shaky breath like she had been holding it for too long. I don't want to hurt you, she said. I don't want to hurt you either, I replied. But I think we already are, just in different ways. That silence stayed with us the rest of the drive. When we got back to the shop, Daniel was still asleep in the back seat. I carried him inside carefully and laid him on the cot. Claire pulled the blanket over him and stayed standing there for a moment, watching him breathe. Neither of us said anything else. Nothing about love. Nothing about what we were becoming. But something had already shifted between us. We weren't just a man helping and a woman being helped anymore. We were two people who had already lost too much, slowly realizing that pain doesn't have to sit alone. 2 weeks passed without trouble. Claire kept working at the diner. Daniel started coming to the shop after school. At first, he stayed quiet, sitting in the corner and watching everything like he was still waiting to disappear again. But slowly, that distance faded. He began handing me tools when I asked, even when he didn't know what they were called. In the evenings, the three of us ate together in the back room like it had always been that way. I caught myself buying things without thinking. Milk he liked, cereal he pointed at once, bread I knew would disappear by morning. Claire noticed. She never said it directly, but sometimes her eyes softened when she saw it. Like she understood something she didn't want to name yet. I kept telling myself it was temporary. That they would find a place. That I would go back to my silence, my routine, my empty Fridays. I repeated it enough times that I almost believed it. Then Ray Patterson walked into the shop. I was under an old Harley, hands deep in grease. When the garage door rolled open, the light shifted. I slid out on the creeper and saw him standing there. Tall, broad-shouldered. The kind of man who didn't need to speak loudly to make a room feel smaller. His eyes scanned everything like he was measuring what belonged to him. I'm looking for my wife, he said. I stood slowly, wiping my hands with a rag. You've got the wrong place. Claire Patterson, he said. And my son Daniel. Someone told me they've been staying here. The way he said my wife and my son told me everything I needed to know. I kept my voice steady. If they were here, I don't think they'd want to see you. He stepped inside anyway. That's not your decision, he said coldly. She's my wife. That boy is my son. I'm taking them home. She left for a reason. His jaw tightened. She told you her version, he said with a bitter smile. Of course she did. Claire's good at that. Playing the victim. He looked me up and down. What are you supposed to be? Some kind of hero mechanic saving a struggling woman and her kid? I didn't answer. He glanced toward the apartment above the shop. You've been playing house with someone else's family for long? That did it. I stepped forward. Get out of my shop. His head tilted slightly. Careful, he said. I've got rights. I've got a lawyer. If you keep my son away from me, I'll make sure you lose this place too. He smiled like it meant nothing. Then he turned and left. But I already knew he wasn't done. That night, Claire didn't come back from the diner. I called Betty. She said Claire had left early, said she wasn't feeling well. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Something in my chest tightened. I drove across town until I found her car parked outside a cheap motel on the edge of the city. I knocked. Claire. It's me. After a long pause, the door opened slightly. She stood there, pale, shaken. Daniel was behind her on the bed, curled up, holding a pillow too tightly. We have to go, she said immediately. No, I said. Claire, talk to me. He found us, she whispered. We can't stay. If we do, he'll use court. He'll use Daniel. He'll use you. You can't keep running, I said. I just need tonight, she said. I held the door with my hand. Let me help. Her voice cracked. You've already helped too much. I saw it then. She was trying to make it easier for me by cutting me out of her life. But she didn't understand something. Her leaving didn't make things easier. It broke something. I looked past her. Daniel was watching me. Uncle Marcus, he said softly. Claire turned quickly, pulling him close. Don't, she whispered. She closed the door. And I stayed in the hallway long after the silence settled. The pain flashed hot up my side, but I didn't go down. I shoved him into a dresser, blocked his next punch, and held him long enough for Claire to run into the hallway and call 911. The police arrived fast. Neighbors finally came out of their apartments. Daniel was found hiding in a closet, shaking, but safe. Ray tried to say I attacked him first, but the marks on Claire's face, the bruises on her wrist, Daniel's statement, and the neighbors who had heard the yelling made his story fall apart. They cuffed him right there. As they walked him out, Ray looked at Claire. You're going to regret this. Claire didn't back away. She held Daniel's hand, voice shaking but steady. No. For the first time, I'm not regretting anything. After the police left, I drove Claire and Daniel back to the shop. Nobody said much on the way. Daniel sat in the back, eyes swollen from crying. Claire stared out the window, one arm wrapped around herself like she was holding her own pieces together. In the back room, Daniel walked straight to me and hugged my waist. You really came? I bent down and held him gently. You called, I said. I came. Claire watched us, tears running down her face. I thought leaving would keep you safe, she whispered. Don't keep me safe by disappearing, I said. She covered her mouth and cried harder. I didn't pull her into my arms right away. I let her come to me. And when she did, when she leaned her forehead against my chest, I knew I wasn't just helping strangers anymore. I was falling in love with a woman who had gone too long without feeling safe. The weeks after that night were swallowed by paperwork, police reports, lawyers, and court dates. Daniel woke up screaming from nightmares more than once. Claire barely slept. I did what I could without taking control. I drove them to hearings. I sat in waiting rooms. I made sure they ate. But I let Claire make the decisions. She had spent too long having her choices taken away. I wasn't going to become another reason for that. Ray didn't go quietly. He hired a lawyer and fought hard. His side tried to paint Claire as unstable, homeless, a woman who had run off with her son and was now living off a man she barely knew. They suggested I was taking advantage of her. They said Daniel needed a real family, meaning Ray in control again. I wrote a statement for the court. I didn't try to sound like a hero. I just told the truth plainly. Claire hadn't run because she was reckless. She ran because she was protecting her son. Daniel didn't need to be forced back into fear. And if the court needed proof of stability, my shop and the room behind it could stand as a safe place until Claire found something permanent. Betty wrote a letter too, confirming Claire's work, her reliability, her honesty. Regular customers spoke up, saying Daniel was always safe and cared for. Even Mrs. Callahan, the same neighbor who once questioned everything, testified she had seen the truth. On the day of the hearing, Claire sat in the witness stand and told everything. The years of being hit. The blame placed on her after Emma's death. The nights she stayed because she had nowhere else to go. Ray's lawyer asked why she didn't leave sooner. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't break. Because I was scared, she said. Because I had no money. Because I believed I wouldn't survive without him. But I left anyway. And I'm not going back. I sat behind her and watched her shoulders stay straight even as her voice cracked. She wasn't the woman who had once stood in a diner doorway asking just to sit for a minute. She was a mother who had walked through fire and still chose her child. The judge granted Claire full custody of Daniel and issued a 5-year restraining order against Ray. Any contact would require court approval and psychological evaluation. When it was over, Claire's body finally gave out. Daniel wrapped his arms around her neck. I stayed back until she turned and found me. Then I reached out, and she took my hand. That night, we went back to the shop. Daniel fell asleep almost instantly. Claire and I sat outside in the garage, surrounded by half-restored motorcycles, drinking coffee that had gone cold. The silence between us felt different now. Not heavy. Not empty. Just real. I don't know how to thank you, she said. Don't thank me anymore, I replied. You could have walked away so many times, she said quietly. I know. Then why didn't you? I looked down at my hands, the grease, the scars, the life I had tried to keep buried after Anna. Because before you and Daniel showed up, I was just existing, I said. I told myself I was alive, but I wasn't really living. Every Friday I sat in that diner, ordering a meal for someone who wasn't coming back. I paused. When Daniel came in that night, I saw something I didn't know I still had left to give. Maybe I was saving myself too. But I never saw him as a replacement. And I never saw you as a way to forget her. Claire listened without interrupting. Finally she asked softly, Then what do you see when you look at me? I hesitated, because the honest answer felt dangerous even now. I see someone who's surviving, I said. And I respect that. She exhaled shakily. I don't want to hurt you, she said. I don't want to hurt you either, I replied. But I think we already carry enough pain without adding silence on top of it. That night, for the first time, I spoke about Anna without falling apart. I told her how she used to steal fries off my plate, how she left notes in my toolbox, how she made ordinary days feel like something worth keeping. Claire laughed through tears. Then she told me about Emma, how small she had been, how short her life was, and how love doesn't disappear even when it has nowhere to go. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. That quiet understanding between two people carrying loss felt like something deeper than urgency or escape. For the first time since Anna's death, grief wasn't something I had to hold alone. And for Claire, it was the first time she didn't have to survive in isolation. Life after the hearing didn't suddenly become easy. Claire still woke up at night startled. Daniel still flinched at loud sounds. I still had moments where the diner window made my chest tighten. But none of it had to be carried alone anymore. Claire got a stable job at a downtown restaurant Betty recommended. Daniel started smiling more. He had a small corner in the shop now where he kept his drawings. We didn't rush anything. We didn't force a new life out of broken pieces. We let it grow slowly. Some nights she cooked in the back room. Some Sundays we went to the park. Sometimes Daniel fell asleep in the truck and we just talked in silence afterward. 1 year later, I set the usual booth at Betty's diner. This time, I ordered 3 plates. Betty didn't say a word. She just nodded like she understood everything. Daniel finished his meal and asked for pie. Claire laughed when he tried to order a second slice. After dinner, he ran outside to look at cars. Claire and I stayed behind. I placed a small box on the table. Not a ring. Not a promise too fast. A key. She looked at it, then at me. "Marcus, this feels like a proposal," she said softly. I smiled. "I know. But it's not one. It's just a place that's already yours if you ever need it." Her eyes filled. "You never really stopped leaving the door open for us, did you? I don't think I know how to close it anymore." She closed her fingers around the key. "I love you," she said. I froze. Not because I didn't feel it, but because hearing it made it real in a way nothing else ever had. "I love you too, Claire," I said. "And I'm not loving you to replace anything. I'm loving you because you're you." She cried. I did too, quietly, like neither of us wanted to break what we were finally building. A few months later, they moved into the apartment above the shop. Not as guests. Not as temporary lives passing through. As a family learning how to exist together. Daniel had his own desk. Claire placed plants in the window. Anna's photo stayed on the shelf beside a new picture of all 3 of us at the park. Nothing was erased. Nothing was replaced. The past stayed, but it stopped bleeding into everything. One Friday, Daniel looked at the booth and asked if I really used to sit there alone. I said yes. He asked if I was sad. I said very. Then he asked, "Do you think Anna would be happy now?" I looked at Claire. She took my hand under the table. "I think she would be," I said, "because I'm not eating alone anymore." He nodded and went back to his food like it made perfect sense. Time kept moving. Ray became only a memory held at a distance by law and consequence. Claire grew stronger. Daniel grew up safe. And I learned something I never understood before. Grief doesn't disappear. It just changes shape until it stops dragging you down. I still think about Anna every Friday. But now, when I sit at Betty's diner, I don't see an empty chair as something missing. I see it as part of the road that brought me here. If I hadn't ordered that second plate for 3 years, I might never have had anything to give Daniel that night. If I hadn't known loss, I might never have recognized survival in someone else's eyes. That doesn't make tragedy meaningful. Loss is still loss. But sometimes, from what's left behind, you can choose one small act of kindness. And that one act can change everything. I used to believe that second plate belonged to a woman who would never return. Now I understand it became something else entirely. A beginning I never saw coming. And on a Friday night, in a corner booth of an old diner, I was no longer the man eating alone with an empty chair. I was the man sitting with Claire and Daniel, carrying the memory of Anna beside me, and finally learning how to live again.